The alarm cut through the mess hall like a blade through paper, and every single body in the room went still at once. I did not freeze. My spoon was halfway to my mouth when the doors at the far end hissed open, and I simply lowered it, watching. The creature that stepped inside was 9 feet tall, built from dark plating and long limbs that bent in places a human joint never should. Its eyes were flat and black, taking in the room the way a shopper studies a shelf of fruit. Everyone around me had gone rigid. The Kethrani at the next table sat with her fork frozen in the air. The 2 Yulthuran guards near the exit stood locked in place, their weapons still strapped to their backs, untouched. I had heard about this creature before. The crew called it a reaper, a hunter from a world so hostile that only the fastest and cruelest things survived there. It had slipped onto the station 3 days ago, and nobody had been able to stop it since. Every witness said the same thing. It walked in, and everyone froze, and by the time anyone moved again, it was already gone, and so was someone else. I am Ethan Brooks, and I am the only human on this station. My crewmates like to joke that I moved like a cat, quick and low, always aware of the corners of a room. It used to be a compliment about my reflexes during cargo runs. Now it might be the only thing that saved my life. The Reaper's head turned toward me. Out of the entire room, I was the only one still moving, still breathing normally, still alert. To a predator that hunts by watching for stillness, I must have looked like the only living thing in the hall. I slid off my bench without a sound and put a support pillar between us. My heart pounded, but my legs did not shake. Somewhere behind that pillar, dozens of frozen people were about to become an easy meal if I did not do something. The creature took a step forward, claws clicking softly against the metal floor. I grabbed the edge of a serving cart beside me and pushed it hard across the floor, sending it crashing into a stack of storage containers on the other side of the hall. The noise was loud, sharp, and far from where I stood. The Reaper's head snapped toward the sound instantly. Predators like that do not resist a sudden noise, not when their prey has been standing still for so long. It moved fast, faster than anything that size should be able to move, crossing half the hall in a blink. That gave me the seconds I needed. I ran along the wall, staying low, and grabbed the shoulder of the nearest guard. His name was Callum, one of the 2 Yulthurans stationed at the door. He did not respond right away. His eyes locked forward, his whole body caught in that same frozen state as everyone else. I shook him hard. "Callum, look at me, not at it." His eyes shifted toward mine, and something in his training broke through the fear. He blinked hard, twice, and his hand moved toward his weapon. "Good, now move with me." We backed toward the corridor exit together, and slowly, the sound of his boots against the floor pulled a few others out of their frozen state as well. A young woman named Ivy grabbed her little brother's hand and pulled him under a table. An older man named Peter finally exhaled, the breath he had been holding since the doors first opened. The Reaper spun back toward us the moment it realized the noise from the containers had been a trick. Its long limbs pushed it forward across the tables, sending trays and bowls flying in every direction. Callum raised his weapon, but his hands were still trembling too much to aim. I did not have a weapon. I had a serving tray, still in my hand from a moment before, thick metal built to hold heavy meals for an entire deck of workers. As the Reaper closed the distance, I swung the tray with everything I had, catching the side of its head just as it lunged. The impact staggered it for a heartbeat, and a heartbeat was all Callum needed. His weapon fired, and the shot forced the creature backward instead of forward, buying us the space to keep moving. We did not stop to celebrate. A wounded predator like this one only becomes more dangerous, and I already knew we needed a plan, not a pause. "The vents lead toward the reactor corridor," I said to Callum as we ran. "If we can get it into a narrow space, it loses its speed advantage." "How do you know that?" "Because on my planet, the biggest threats were never the strongest ones. They were the ones that could turn fast in tight spaces. This thing is built for open ground, not corridors. Callum did not question me again. We turned down a side hallway, and behind us, the crash of metal told us the Reaper was already following, drawn by the noise of our footsteps and our voices. Ivy and her brother were safely behind a sealed door by now, along with most of the mess hall. That left just Callum, myself, and a second guard named Aiden who joined us from a side corridor, his weapon finally raised and ready. The narrow reactor corridor stretched ahead of us, lit by a dim red emergency light. I had worked cargo routes through this section for 2 years, and I knew every turn, every pipe, every place a person could hide or brace themselves. There is a maintenance hatch 50 feet ahead, I said. It leads into a space barely wide enough for one of us to fit. Wide enough for a human, not wide enough for that thing. Aiden frowned. You want to use yourself as bait. I want to use myself as the reason it stops thinking clearly. It has been chasing frozen prey for 3 days. It has never had to solve a problem before now. There was no time to argue further. The Reaper rounded the corner behind us, moving with a limp from Callum's earlier shot, but still faster than any of us could outrun for long. I sprinted ahead, reached the maintenance hatch, and slipped through it, just as the creature reached the opening. Its claws scraped against the metal frame, unable to fit its full body through the narrow gap. For the first time since it had boarded this station, the Reaper let out a sound that was not confident or controlled. It was frustration. Callum and Aiden moved into position on either side of the hatch, weapons ready. I pressed my back against the cold wall inside the narrow tunnel, watching the creature claw uselessly at the frame, its long arm reaching through, but unable to grab anything solid. Now, I called out. Both guards fired at once, the shots striking the exposed limb and shoulder of the creature, where its plating was thinnest. It let out a sharp cry and pulled back from the hatch, retreating down the corridor the way it had come, faster than before, but clearly weakened. I climbed back out through the hatch, my hands shaking now that the adrenaline was starting to fade. Callum reached out and steadied my shoulder. You knew it would go for the noise instead of us. Predators that rely on stillness get confused by chaos. It has never had to deal with someone who refuses to freeze. We did not chase it further. Station security arrived minutes later, sealing off the lower decks and tracking the wounded creature by the trail it left behind. By the following morning, they had captured it in a containment field near the old storage bay, weakened enough from its injuries that it could not resist. The mess hall reopened 3 days later, cleaned and repaired, the tables replaced, the dents in the walls smoothed over. Ivy found me near the entrance and thanked me quietly, her brother standing close beside her, still a little pale from the memory. Peter, the older man who had finally caught his breath that day, stopped me in the hallway and asked how I had managed to stay calm when everyone else could not move. I told him the truth. It was not bravery. It was not some hidden strength. It was simply the way I was raised, on a world where standing still while something hunted you was never a survival strategy. My ancestors ran, climbed, fought, and adapted, generation after generation, until moving first became instinct instead of choice. Word spread quickly after that. Crew members from other decks started calling me by a new nickname, one that stuck no matter how many times I tried to correct them. They called me the human cat, quick on my feet, impossible to catch off guard, always watching the room before anyone else noticed there was something to watch for. I still do not think of myself as special. I think of myself as someone who never learned how to freeze, because where I come from, freezing was never an option. The station returned to its normal rhythm within a week, cargo runs resuming, meals served without incident, laughter filling the same hall that had once gone silent with fear. But every so often, when a new crew member arrived from another world, someone would lean over and tell them the story of the day everyone froze, and one person did not. They would point across the room, right at me, and say it's simple and plain. That is the one who stayed moving. That is the reason we are all still here. I would just nod, finish my meal, and keep watching the corners of the room, the way I always had, the way I always would.